Hi, welcome to podcast episode number 11. I did a lot of knitting over the last few weeks. I also did a lot of staring out of this window. I have a window now that is right next to my desk, which I also had in my old apartment, but I was just staring straight at the wall of another house, and now I have a tree. So that's pretty cool. I've been sitting here and knitting and having my little cozy cups of coffee or tea and watching all the ladybugs fly around for the first few weeks, and now there's a couple of crows that are playing outside. It's quite nice, and I made a lot of progress on some of my projects. I knitted a whole entire garment while we weren't talking, one that I hadn't even cast on the last episode, which I'm also wearing right now, so I'll tell you a little bit about that, and let's get started. I tried something new today. I put like a thermo shirt underneath. I have a few of those for when it gets really cold in the winter, and I thought it might look cute to wear together. I don't know how I feel about it. I think I don't like the seam. I mean, it's not really supposed to be worn visibly, but I found that I quite like wearing them with items that have shorter sleeves, so they kind of peek out here. I thought that looked cool, so I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about this, but I have some other shirts to put underneath this as well. This is the Cuddle vest by 𝗪𝗡𝗡𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 to participate and learn how that works. And I believe the pattern is out already. Before I started, I already knew it was a very beginner-friendly pattern, and it is really not a ton of knitting, it's just a vest. And it is a very big gauge. I think it is supposed to be knitted on 7mm, but because my knitting is always a bit loose, I sized down to 6 and I did the ribbing on 5. So yeah, big gauge, and I thought maybe I could get it done in one day because I am working on other things right now, mainly my own design that I want to get finished. So I thought it would be good to squeeze this one somewhere in between and not spend too much time on it. And I'm not gonna tell you if I was able to do it because my project vlog is coming out next week, so then you can see if I was able to complete it in my 24 hours that I set myself. The yarn that I used is camarose snefnug, which is 55% alpaca and 35% cotton and 10% wool, I believe. And I've never worked with it before. I've worked with one other camarose yarn before, which I liked. So we'll see how this one wears. But working with it was pretty fun. It comes in a few colors that are undyed. For example, this gray that I used here, I think this is just called gray. And then this jeans blue that I used for the finishings is a dyed color. So there are quite a bunch of those as well. And this yarn happened to be the exact right gauge and meterage for the pattern. I think it matched the suggested yarn exactly, which I think it was something from 𝗙𝗪𝙀𝗧𝗏, something with brushed alpaca. So this one worked out very well as well, and I'm pretty happy with the finished object. It was definitely exhausting to attempt and do this in one day. I got up very early and I worked, I think, the ribbing before it even got bright outside. So there was a lot to do for that one day, and it was definitely hard on my hands. Otherwise, the process of knitting it up was very straightforward. As I said, it's a beginner-friendly garment, so it wasn't necessarily difficult for me in any way, shape or form, but it is worked bottom up. So you start with the hem ribbing and then work the body, which you can obviously make however long you would like, and then you split into a front section and a back section, and you work them separately. And I think then you attach the shoulders, and at the end you do the ribbing for the arms and the neck. So the construction was pretty easy. The knitting went relatively fast at such a gauge, and I don't know, it was a very quick experience. I feel a bit weird about this garment somehow because I feel like I didn't spend enough time with it to really realize that I made this. So when I was sitting down to film today, I had to go back and actually think about what the hell was I knitting on, because I kind of forgot I had this. But yeah, now I have it as a finished object. I've worn it once before, but also I finished this like, I don't know, a good week ago or something, so there wasn't that much time to put it on yet. And I'm very excited to see if I'll actually wear this, because I don't really have vests. I think I own one other one that has been in my wardrobe for such a long time and I don't really ever put it on. Also because that one has a weird length, but I don't know, I feel like vests are pretty difficult for me to style. I never really know when to wear them weather-wise, because I don't know, my arms are cold and then this part is so warm, and then it's weird when you're wearing a jacket, and I don't know, I never know what to wear underneath. I never have anything matching or something that works with the amount of positive ease that this has and then the garment underneath has. Like, this works really well because this is so tight, but earlier this week I was wearing like a button up under it and it worked, but you know, it's getting a little bit uncomfortable after a while, so I don't know how I feel about vests. I will try with this one. But even if I don't wear it a ton, I think I know some people I could give this to. For the test knitting experience, it was really interesting to see how something like that is organized, because I do plan on maybe hosting one in the future, but I'll tell you about that a little bit later. We were all in an Instagram group chat, which it was a bit much sometimes because there was always somebody talking, and sometimes I like missed messages because I did not have time to read all of them. But it was cute. I think most of the communication that was important just went via email, so that was pretty easy. And if you had time, you could like look into the Instagram group chat and see what everybody else was up to. And it was a good mix of people in the group. There were some people who were knitting their first garment, there were some more experienced people, so it was kind of cool to see what everybody was coming up with. Also the color combinations were really great, and I believe the designer will be sharing some of the finished objects from that test knit along with the pattern release, so you can definitely draw some inspiration from there if you're looking for what colors you might want to make. And you can definitely do this as a first garment. I don't know if I would recommend it as a first knitted item. I think you should maybe start a little bit smaller with a scarf or a hat or whatever, just to learn how to do the knit and purl stitches. And I think once you have that down, this would be a good item to go to further your skills and kind of learn how to construct a garment and stuff like that, do some increases and decreases. I think if you're willing to sit through a whole garment but not quite a sweater yet, which is also always more complicated with the shaping and okay, you have to pick up stitches here as well, but you know, there's just a lot more knitting to do when you also have sleeves. I always underestimate that. I don't know, I always think, oh, a sleeve, it'll be so quick, and then it is somehow not, because when you like lay a sleeve flat, it is pretty much the same circumference as either front or back panel, so I don't know why I always think sleeves are quick, but they are not. So yeah, if you're starting out with knitting, this is definitely an item you can go to, and even if you've been knitting for a longer time, it is a very cool item to just crank out in a very short amount of time and, you know, have something cozy for the transitional season now that it's almost going into winter already. My tree outside of my window is very quickly losing all of its leaves. There's actually the same tree on the other side of the house, and that one has like 3 leaves left, and this one, it has most of them still, so I'm not sure how that works, if that has something to do with the direction of the wind maybe, because it's kind of confusing, it's the same kind of tree. Anyways, that was all about my cuddle vest, and now I'll move on to my works in progress. My main project for the last few weeks has been my lille blouse, which I am designing myself. This is the state of it right now. I believe last time I showed this to you, it only had a yoke, so I made a big chunk of progress on this actually. I'm knitting this with the alpaca silk 𝗙𝗚𝗡𝗗𝗚 by Expression Fiber Arts, and it's a very luxurious yarn. It's half silk and half alpaca, and it's really fun to knit with and surprisingly warm, so I'm very excited for this. I thought maybe I'm a bit late with designing a blouse now since it's getting so cold, but I think with the amount of alpaca in this, it'll be very cozy even in winter. So I ended up somewhere, I don't know, here with the yoke, and I worked the body in the round after that, which obviously I didn't really do anything. I think I did 1 decrease, so I could do my little lace pattern repeat for the bind off. That is now still curling a little bit because this hasn't been properly blocked. Here you can see. So this is the same lace repeat that I also used for the cast on here, so that'll make it a little bit wavy once this is actually finished. And I did a sewn bind off on the body, which took so long. I think I sat for 3 hours binding off the body, so that is not the most practical thing to knit, but I think it was worth it because I tried doing a normal bind off at first, but it wasn't stretchy enough to accommodate for the wave of the lace, so that would have been a bit sad if that hadn't worked. And then I did my sleeve, and I think last time I chatted a bit about that I wasn't sure yet what to do with the sleeve and was like collecting some ideas, and this was one of them which I ended up actually executing. So for my sleeve I just picked up the stitches that I put on hold here, and I cast on some extra stitches under the arm. And I did work some decreases, so I would have an amount of stitches that works with my pattern repeat. And then I essentially recycled the same pattern repeat I had up here, just without the increases, obviously, because here I was working increases in the flower petals, and for the sleeve I didn't work any increases or decreases for this section actually. So as you might be able to see, the space in between the flower petals is a bit bigger here, but I think it looks similar enough that it obviously goes together. So that was pretty fun to do. It actually was a lot easier knitting this than this, not necessarily because there weren't any increases or decreases, just because I had, you know, done it once. I think that made it quite a bit easier. And then I went back and forth with the cuff quite a bit because I wasn't quite sure what to do for it, because the sleeve is pretty wide and I knew I wanted the cuff to cinch in quite a bit, just because I dislike when you have a sweater or blouse or whatever and you can't roll up the sleeve. I feel like that's really impractical. So I wanted it to be tight enough and stretchy enough that you could roll up your sleeve. But I also didn't want to do any ribbing outside because I feel like that doesn't go with the blouse look very well. This is just very polished and clean, and I didn't want to break it up with doing ribbing. And I also didn't really want to reuse the same pattern repeat here because it's just not enough stitches for that. Like the repeat here is, I think, between 25 and 29 stitches in the pattern, depending on the size. So that wasn't really working with this cuff. It wouldn't have looked like anything really. So what I ended up doing was I just kept the stockinette for the outside part here to maintain this clean type of look. And then I did a double folded cuff. So the inside of it is ribbing. So I knitted this part in stockinette and then I knitted the same length in ribbing and folded it inwards and attached it. So that looks very coherent for the outside and is still very stretchy for the inside, which is great because I can roll up my sleeve with this. That's exactly what I wanted to do. And I tried keeping the cuff about the same length as the cast on here for the neck. So I don't know, it looks like it goes together. And that kind of means that my design part of this is done because I'm working on the second sleeve right now. And that is obviously just the same thing all over again. And that also means I'm pretty much done with the pattern. I actually finished grading it yesterday, which was quite exciting. And now I really just need to write the text. The pattern isn't really written yet. I just have my Excel sheet that I've been referring back to. But it is already planned out for all sizes, which I'm very glad that I started out that way. I think most of the time when people design knitted items, at least from what I hear, they just kind of knit up their size and then grade it up or down, which I kind of started a bit differently. I already kept all of the sizes in mind while I was doing the design, which I think was really beneficial because otherwise it might happen that for the smaller sizes, for example, you might have to do a lot of decreases in one spot suddenly. Or for the larger sizes, maybe things don't match up as well, like the proportions are just different. So I think it was really good that I started grading as I started designing, but something like the length of the body was just, you know, something I left open until the very end because I wanted to see how it fits on me and then think about how to do it for the other sizes, which really isn't a big problem because it's just a different number of rows. So technically everything is planned out now. I do have to go back in and do some tech editing, which I will either do tonight or tomorrow. Maybe I will see when I have time for it. And then it's pretty much only writing the pattern, which I mean, I do like already know what sections I'll have. And oh, can you hear the rain? It started raining. But yeah, I do have a general idea in my mind of what I want the pattern to look like. I do have a general idea of what I want the design to look like because I wrote one pattern before and I will just refer back to that because I like the design of it. And I don't know, a lot of people did download it and some people are knitting it, so I'm hoping that the design of that was fine. I didn't receive any complaints about it at least, so I think that would be cool. I would actually be interested to know if you print out your patterns because that's something I've been thinking about. I think for my first pattern, I did briefly consider it, but I was just like, oh no, people don't print out patterns anymore. And I did move some of the charts and the text quite close to the sides of the paper. So I'm actually not sure if anybody still prints out patterns. Like, do you print them out or do you just leave them on, I don't know, your laptop or your phone or whatever? I have a tablet, like an old one that barely works but works well enough to use the Notes app, which I usually use for having my patterns open, just because I like that I can still, you know, like a piece of paper, check things off, cross out the rows that I've knitted and take notes and whatever, but I don't have to have pieces of paper flying around or pieces of paper that I need to take anywhere, which I don't know, is just very impractical. I also didn't have a printer, so that might have been another problem. But yeah, do you print them out? Because if a lot of people print them out, I should probably consider not putting things so close to the sides so that you can actually read everything when you're printing it. And then for the pattern release, I'm not 100% sure yet how I want to go about things. I don't know if I will find enough people to test knit this. I do have 10 sizes graded for bust circumferences between 75 centimeters and 155 centimeters. So at my reach, finding that many people who are willing to test knit something like this, I think it's not incredibly realistic, especially because it takes quite a while to knit this up. Like, this is quite a commitment. It is a DK weight yarn. It is knitted on 3.5mm needles. It is oversized. It is a lot of stitches, especially for the yoke. So I would have to give people, I don't know, like 5-6 weeks at least to knit this up. And it is also fairly complicated. It is not the hardest pattern ever, but there is color work, there's lace, there's increases, it's a circular yoke. You know, there's a lot of things going on that you might also have to keep track of at the same time. So it's not necessarily beginner friendly at all. So I'm just not really convinced I will find enough people who are willing to test knit this, and, you know, then it would just elongate the whole process quite a bit. So I'm thinking about just releasing this one without test knitting, keeping it free. And that would be an option to do it on the 16th of November, which is in my calendar, like marked in pencil only, seeing if I'll keep it that way. Unless like 1,000 people now contact me and tell me, please, I want to test knit this, this is really cool. I do, however, have test knitting planned for maybe another item that I'm thinking about, but I will get to that in the plans section. For now, I would like to chat a little bit about my other work in progress, which I have right here next to me. This is going to be my Esther jacket by Petite Knit. I hope you're not tired of me talking about this yet, because I've been talking about this for I don't know how many times, an endless amount of times. I wanted to knit this last year already, and I didn't cast it on, and then I cast it on weeks ago already. This has just been my backup project when I got too frustrated with my lille blouse, because I don't know, like I like to prioritize my own designs, and then the patterns that I'm knitting just kind of get less attention, you know. So I haven't made a ton of progress on it, but quite a bit. I did finish the back panel this morning, actually. Picked it back up. So this is the state of it now. This is supposed to be where my head goes later, up here, and then this is the back. I made a few changes. I kind of, after, where was I? After I was here, so before this increase section, I decided to switch sizes, because I did do a mid-project block. I believe I talked about that last time, that I wanted to do one. So I did do my mid-project block, and I was missing, I think, around 2 or 3 centimeters in width. So it already looks like it's not incredibly oversized in the picture, and I thought, since the beginning here, there's 2 different charts. For the smaller sizes there's one, and then for the larger sizes there's another one, and I was working the larger one anyways, because I was originally doing a large. So I could still like pivot to a different size, and I decided to just go 2 sizes up even, so that I would have enough positive ease on this, and I do think I have enough yarn for it as well. It doesn't seem like I will be using up quite as much as I have. I think I have like 14 balls of it, and I am on my second one now. I like started my second one over here. So I think I should be fine with the amount of yarn I have, even if I do a bigger size. This is filcolana peruvian, by the way, if I haven't mentioned it. And I'm knitting on 3.5mm needles, which is a lot smaller than what the pattern says, which I think is 5mm, because, well, gauge and things, and, you know, me being a loose knitter and picking a different yarn and whatever. But I like the fabric it produces. I am kind of hitting gauge. I still don't know how I feel about knitting this. Sometimes it's going really well and it's fun, and sometimes it's really frustrating. That is mostly dependent on how my current row is going, because there's like a sweet spot maybe half an hour in. Like when I sit down to knit this, I haven't looked at the pattern in a while, I don't know where I'm at. And then I tend to make a few mistakes on this and have to go back, and then maybe after half an hour I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember what I was doing here, I remember the chart, I remember how many stitches were in between those triangles, and then it's going well for, I don't know, in half an hour or something, and then I start to lose focus and start to make mistakes on it again, and then it's frustrating again, because the mistakes are like, you don't see them at first glance, but you will catch them later. It's not like you they go over your head and you don't see them, but when you're looking at it, you will see them. Just when you've just knitted the row, you won't. So I don't know. It's sometimes it's a bit frustrating to work on it, but now that it's a bigger piece, I'm starting to see the whole picture a little bit better. It's definitely not a pattern that holds your hand. It's just like very minimal. It's not incredibly minimal, but it will sometimes just tell you to, oh, keep following the chart and now do decreases, and you're like, oh, okay. For example, here, the part I just did, you're supposed to just keep doing the moss stitch and then do increases for the arms, but you only increase one stitch on either side. So in this section, I'm only increasing one stitch, but I'm supposed to keep doing moss stitch, which is a 2-stitch repeat. So then obviously one of the stitches at least will not be in the moss stitch repeat anymore. So I'm just guessing how to do that. Like I just picked this very outside stitch to be the one that looks a bit goofy, because that will be mostly hidden, but I don't know if that was the way I was supposed to do it. The pattern didn't tell me, you know. So I don't know. I feel like sometimes it could use an extra sentence here or there. Other than that, I do like the design still a lot, and I'm very excited to have this as a finished item. It will probably be a while before it is a finished item from what it's looking like, because I haven't been grabbing this a ton. I also have some extensive plans for the next few weeks for my designing and like gift knitting and whatever, so I don't know if this will get finished before the end of the year. I guess we will see. I actually don't know what I'm supposed to do now. I think I'm supposed to somehow pick up for the shoulders, because I was told to break my yarn. So I'm guessing I will continue up here somewhere and pick up for the front panels. That would be kind of fun, switching charts and everything. I don't really have any other updates on this. I think it's kind of a cool project to do if you want something engaging. I think I maybe cast it on at the wrong time a little bit, because I already have my own design that is incredibly engaging for the most part, because I have to think about what the hell I'm supposed to do with it, and then also having something like this on top of that, where I have to like be very close to my chart and count all the time, probably wasn't the smartest choice, but well, it can be a slow whip. That's okay by me. For my acquisitions and plans, I didn't get anything, so I don't have any acquisitions, but I do have a few plans. I don't know where to start. I think I'll start with this one, because I believe I might have shown that last time already. This is my one very pretty skein of hand-dyed sock yarn that I got on vacation, and that I believe maybe last time I told you I want to make a hat with, which I still want to do, and that's why I wound it up into a ball while I was listening to the new Taylor Swift album. Actually, I got it very early, so I could be there when it releases, and I listened to it and wound up my skein. And I have made the gauge swatch, and I have already pretty much gone through the entire design and grading process. I do have an Excel sheet that is pretty much finished. I just need to knit it up and see if it works. So I think once my lille blouse is finished, this will be my new main thing I will be thinking about. And I would like to host test knitting for this, because it is a small item. It should go fairly quickly for me and also for anybody trying this. And I would just, you know, like to get acquainted with the process of hosting test knitting. So if you're interested in making a little hat, you should look out for the tester call on that. How much should I share about my design ideas? I don't know. I'm kind of going into like a jester type of direction. I saw some TikToks of Chapel Roan on tour, and she was wearing this bodysuit with these triangular shaped pieces around her thighs, and I thought that looked really fun, and I was kind of inspired by that. And then I also found a hat that I used to wear when I was a child. Wait, I'll go get it. This one. It is not in its best state anymore, but it keeps unraveling. It says cool here, obviously, because I'm very cool. but it is a very long hat, and it has this cute, whatever this is supposed to be, but it like falls down your back when you wear it. It's also very hard to put on because it's so long. You wear it like that, and then you have this just hanging in the back or your shoulder, and I think it looks adorable. So that was my second piece of inspiration, and I'm going to use both of those to make my hat, I hope. As I said, I haven't knitted it up. I have no idea if it'll work, but in my mind it does work and it looks really cool. So if any of that sounds like your vibe, you should keep your eyes open for 𝗙𝗪𝗡𝗗𝗏. And then I was already like in the whole vibe of that jester idea and already designing hats, so I had a second idea. And I remember that I still have these two balls of drops air that I don't even know what I got these for, but I got them last year sometime and never used them. I also got them separately, like I had a plan for this and a different plan for this, but I guess neither of them happened, so I still have those. And I'm unsure if this idea will work. I think the other one I can figure out somehow. This one I don't know if it's a good idea, because I have a drops air hat, and I also gifted a drops air hat to somebody before, but both of those were crochet, and for crochet the stitches are just a little more structural than for knitting. And I think that's one of the main reasons why that kind of worked, because knitting a drops air hat might be a little too floppy and thin for a hat, you know. However, I am planning a colorwork design, so maybe it will work. I will try it, and then you will see an update here about how that went. I made a gauge swatch for it already, which looked pretty fun. And I also have most of a design idea planned out for it, so I guess we'll see how that goes. But that isn't even on my actual plan for the next few weeks yet, because I had so many other things to think about. I have been swatching for maybe a hood I want to make. I will use a different yarn and a different color as well, but I just wanted to try conceptually if it'll work. So this is a honeycomb stitch, and then it goes into a ribbing over here. So where the cable ends, it transitions into this ribbing design, and it did work out, which is great. But this needs a lot more thought, and I do have that on my calendar because that would be a cool thing to make. And I'm pretty sure I could definitely get that to work, while the drops air hat, still unsure about that. Maybe the yarn will have to become something else. And then, because all of that obviously wasn't enough to do yet, I also did a bunch of unraveling this week. I unraveled a Sophie scarf I had that was made out of Cardiff cashmere, because I got the cashmere yarn and I wanted to make like a staple type of thing with it, because it's not really something I afford very often, and I just wanted it to be something I can wear all the time. But I just ended up not really wearing that scarf as much, because I do have another Sophie scarf that just ended up working a lot better, even though this is the suggested yarn and the other one wasn't. This one was just very floppy and very thin, and you could kind of see the increases and the decreases on it. And I didn't really like it that much, and I feel like at this point in my knitting where I'm at, I just don't really... The Sophie scarf is cool, it had its moment, it's a fun pattern, but I feel like it didn't quite do this yarn justice. So I retrieved that. I still have some leftovers, and maybe I will be attempting to make a scarf design with it at some point. For now I need to wind it into a ball. But yeah, I got the yarn back from it and I washed it so it wouldn't be crinkly anymore. And then, since I was already at it, I also unraveled another project I had laying around. This was once a mesh sweater that I've attempted twice now and failed at twice. So we'll see if that ever becomes reality. But this is a sock yarn and I wanted to use it to actually make some socks. So I do have plans to make the Sunday socks as a gift knit. And I don't know if that'll happen. I don't know when I'm supposed to do that, to be honest. But actually this week I got my to-dos done early, so maybe I'm a quicker knitter than I am assuming in my plans right now. But yeah, it was a bunch of yarn that I wound into these hanks, I think it's called, and then washed as well. And for the Sunday socks I need to hold it double, but as you might be able to see, this is like self-striping. And in my swatch I didn't really care about colors, but it ended up looking kind of ugly sometimes, because I don't know, sometimes this pink goes together with this green color and it just, when holding them together, it just looked weird. So I tried to roll them into these hanks, while also aligning the colors so that it would actually look good. So this is already double-stranded, and I can just wind this into a ball and then knit it from the ball double-stranded. So I actually made a very big mess here, trying to find how to best align these different skeins of yarn. It did work mostly. I think I have a few meters somewhere that don't quite match up, but other than that I did a surprisingly good job. But it took me a good afternoon to do all that. It is finally dry now. I think I left this out to dry for like 3 days. So yeah, this is also to be wound into a ball. I should get a yarn winder at some point. I keep winding everything by hand, and while I kind of do enjoy the process of it, it also takes so much time. I guess we'll see if I'll at some point in the future make my life actually easy or not. I think that was it. I don't know how long I was talking. I think for a very long time. I had a lot to share today somehow. I hope you had fun crafting along with me. Tell me what you were making. I wonder if people watch this and they're making something that is not knitting or crocheting maybe. Like, do you do other crafts? I don't know. I have some kind of air dry clay laying around somewhere that I've had for a few months and I haven't done anything with. And I think my feed on TikTok or whatever has realized that I do have air dry clay, because it keeps showing me these cutesy little videos of people doing things from air dry clay. They are infinitely more talented than I am. I remember doing air dry clay like maybe 15 years ago sometime. It did not turn out well. So yeah, now I'm really hyped up about the clay and I really want to use it, but I also know that nothing I do will turn out anywhere as good as what I was seeing. Anyways, I went on a tangent again. We'll see about the air dry clay. Let me know what you made out of air dry clay recently. If you have any recommendations for somebody who is not that talented, let me know if you're interested in any of the designs I was talking about. If you would like to test knit any of them or just knit any of them once they're out and published as a pattern, which probably at some point all of them will be. Hopefully, we will see. And I will see you next time.